only bet of the night. We didn't get any live bets in because a lot of favourites won, and they won quickly, so it was hard to get any live bets in. But so it's pay-per-view week. Be plenty of live betting opportunities here and stuff. Pay-per-view is always good because there's a lot of casual money that comes in the card. There's a lot of people betting, which opens up live betting lines. There's a lot of odds movement leading up to the event, as I say, from casual money, which is always good because necessarily that isn't the most sharpest money in terms of odds and stuff. But so we're going to break down the prelims today. On the Contender series, we made a profit of 2.5 units, which I forgot to mention, which is always good. But yeah, as I say, we're going to be breaking down the prelims today. First fight, Kakamaka versus Donny Chavez. Haven't actually broke down this fight. I know Kakamaka is like minus 230 favourite on Bet-Online. These aren't the most high level guys. It is a fight that was made midweek there when Kutlaba got COVID-19 and had to pull out. They had to get another fight in the card. These just happened to be the men that they got. I have no motivation to bet any of these people because it's low level MMA and they're both coming in about 3 days notice. So second fight of the night, Dawkins versus Parker Porter. So Chris Dawkins is brother of Kyle Dawkins, UFC fighter, UFC middleweight, I believe. But Chris Dawkins is a heavyweight. He recently knocked out Danny Chavez in CFFC, which was a weird stoppage because Donny Chavez wasn't entirely out. The ref came in sort of early, but a win's a win. He got knocked out against Zulu, who was seen fighting the UFC against Justin Ledet in his lone UFC appearance. But when I taped Chris Dawkins, I wasn't really impressed with him. I can see why this fight's 50-50 because there's a lot of unknowns, but I would say overall Parker Porter has the better stand-up game, more technical. He was probably the more powerful guy on the feet. He has good right overhand, but Parker Porter's been finished a lot of times, so he's a hard guy to rely on, really. It's just there's a lot of unknowns with this fight. I would give the advantage on the feet, and this is where I think the fight's going to be contested, to Parker Porter. So I'm inclined to believe he wins this fight, most likely by finish. But it's low level heavyweight MMA. It's hard to predict. I can see why it's 50-50 sort of. Parker Porter's slave fave in this one, 17-20 Parker Porter. So I can see why, but at the same time, it's not something I want to play anyway, for the reasons mentioned. But I'll go with Parker Porter by TKO on that one. Next up, TJ Brown versus Danny Chavez. TJ Brown, who we've seen finish this year against Jordan Griffin in his first UFC appearance, which was a weird one because he was winning the fight up until he wasn't winning it. He was winning the fight until he gassed out from constantly trying to, advance position on Jordan Griffin and take him down. He just wore himself out because Jordan Griffin is a big guy for 145. He's a hard guy to take down and keep down, which is why TJ Brown gassed out. And then he eventually gets subbed by Jordan Griffin from side control, I think, which was weird. But, Jordan Griffin, he is an accomplished guy on the ground. There's no real shame in losing to him. But it's concerning high gas. But I'm going to put it down to, trying to keep the bigger man down for the full fight and not giving himself any breathing room, not letting his cardio catch up to his pace, really. But if you watch his other MMA fights, especially on the Contender series, he works his ground game and doesn't really get tired when he's doing it. He is a finisher, but in the fights that we've seen him go over 2.5 rounds, the Dylan Lockhart fight, the Pete Barrett fight, he doesn't get tired, really, when he's comfortably on top of someone. He wasn't comfortably on top of Jordan Griffin when they fought, so that is my 2 cents on why he gassed in that fight. So TJ Brown's the guy that trains and fights out of Arkansas with Bryce Mitchell, and you can sort of see similarities in how they fight because they're very aggressive with takedowns, and then when they get on top, they just finishers, very aggressive with their jiu-jitsu game, and top control and stuff, and really go for the finish. So you can see a lot of similarities in their style. But TJ Brown, he's good fighter on the ground. He's a bit wild on the feet. He does have KO wins on the feet. The Camp Beverly fight and the Edwin Williams fight, 2 head kicks in round 1. And the Edwin Williams one was wild. It was vicious. Search it up if you haven't seen it. It's nasty KO, but he isn't entirely awful on the feet, but he knows where advantage lies, and it's on the ground. So TJ Brown, Donny Chavez. Donny Chavez, we seen him knock out 3 of his last opponents. He is he's very stand-up heavy guy. He's very explosive on the feet, especially in the first 2 rounds. He does have that power, I'd say, early on the feet, and he has a good low kick. If you watch some of his old fights, he is relentless with calf kick. I wouldn't say he's the best calf kicker, but it's obviously one of his tools, and it'll work here because TJ Brown is orthodox in this one. So, the calf kick will be there, but it's just a matter of if the fight plays on the feet. If the fight plays out in the feet, I can see Chavez having the stand-up advantage, but it's sort of hard to get tape on Chavez, so it is. You have to really dive into his fights and really go deep in there to get some tape on him. Because most of his fights are behind a paywall, and the other ones that are not are first round KOs, which we don't have the full fight of, which is annoying. But and the only full 15-minute fight I seen of Danny Chavez was against Justin Steve in 2011. Other than that, I seen first round finishes. But in the Justin Steve fight, he was very low output, and then in his recent performance, he was very explosive and fast starting. So I don't really know how Chavez is going to come out here, but all I can say is I do know how TJ Brown's going to come out. If you listen to some of his interviews, he says he wants to keep us on the feet because he gassed taking down Jordan Griffin. But if you watch TJ Brown's fights, if he's having trouble on the feet, he immediately goes for the takedown, which is something I like in a fighter because it means that they are less inclined to get knocked out on the feet. And Danny Chavez, if you watch his fights, he doesn't have the best takedown defense or ground game, especially off his back. So this is where TJ Brown, that's where TJ Brown's world is, on the ground, on top. And honestly, I can see Brown getting it here, and probably getting the finish over Danny Chavez in this one. I think there's just levels apart on the ground, to be honest. TJ Brown probably the bigger fighter in this one. It is Danny Chavez's UFC debut. So I can see why TJ Brown's favourite here. I'd like for him to be a wee bit higher, but I can see why he's favourite. So Danny Chavez by sub in that one. So next fight is Felix Herreck versus Vernon Giandaroba. So we haven't seen Felix Herreck fight in 2 years. She is one of the bigger women's strawweight fighters in terms of strength, athleticism, and size. Especially over Giandaroba, who we sort of seen get out-muscled by. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of I'm thinking of a fight. I'm thinking of what do you call her? Souza. Sorry, because they're both similar fighters. But Giandaroba, she is multiple-time gi jiu-jitsu world champion. She could have better wrestling, to be honest. Her wheelhouse is obviously the ground, which I expect Giandaroba to take Felix Herreck down onto the ground, because Herreck doesn't have the best takedown defense. Herreck doesn't have, the best jiu-jitsu game, especially off her back. So I can see Giandaroba causing Herreck problems on the ground here, which is why she's like a 280 favourite. The lane is a wee bit wide for me because Felix Herreck probably has the advantage on the feet here. But Giandaroba, she does go for takedowns, and I do think she will get them here against Herreck. So, expect Giandaroba to win this one. I think she finishes Herreck, but it's hard to call because we don't know where Herreck's really at after these 2 years. We haven't seen her fight recently. But historically speaking, we know she has trouble on the ground. We've seen it around the Marcos fight, where she gets subbed with scarfold choke. Her takedown defense has improved somewhat, but it's still unreliable. So, I'm gonna go with Giandaroba by sub in that one. So, Herbert Burns versus Daniel Pineda is actually main card. It's not prelim. So, Liviana Souza versus Icy Yoder is his next fight. So, Liviana Souza was actually the fight I was confusing Giandaroba with there for a second. Both Brazilian strawweights, but different fighters, obviously. But so Liviana Souza versus Icy Yoder. As I was saying, we've seen Liviana Souza get out-muscled by Van Buren there last year, just over a year ago, who is very small strawweight. She's 5 foot. Icy Yoder will have a big size advantage in this one. She's 5'7" versus Souza's 5'3", and Icy Yoder will have a reach advantage and I believe output advantage. Let me just check. Where is it? Yep. So no, actually. Oh yeah. So 3.1 strikes landed per minute compared to Souza's 1.8. Yeah, so as expected. But Liviana Souza needs to get that fight to the ground really to implement their game. I know I've sort of said after the last 3 fights, but it does hold true. Souza's advantage is here on the ground. Icy Yoder's on the ground she just gets in sticky situations. She always ends up in a bad position. She gives up takedowns. We've seen that in the Marcos fight. I've seen that in the Amanda Bobby Cooper fight. But she is durable, Icy Yoder, so I can see this one going distance, but I can see Souza being the more explosive fighter on the feet, which I think she is. and mixing up takedowns and basically outpointing Ishielder across 15 minutes. But I have to say, I don't really have big read in this fight, but I have to side with the favourite here in Liviana Souza by decision. So, preliminary prelim fight is Jim Miller versus Fence Pachelle. So the thing is about Jim Miller, like we all know him by now. He's a savvy vet, excellent jiu-jitsu game. His stand-up game in recent years hasn't been the same. He's lost his explosiveness, but he's still durable on the feet. He still has good cardio and his technique's still there. He just doesn't have the same athletic explosiveness that he did back in the day, but it is what it is. He does have more far higher jiu-jitsu game now than he did before. We've seen that in the Roosevelt Roberts fight when he armbarred him off his back in the first round. In the Scott Holtzman fight, he tired out Jim Miller, but I think Jim Miller got, he gasped because he didn't necessarily gasp, he just slowed down. I think he slowed down because the fight was at altitude. Where was this one again? New Mexico, yep. So yeah, it was at altitude. Jim Miller was getting backed up the whole fight, which I think made him, succumb to the pressure and the cardio of Scott Holtzman. So I think that's why he slowed down that one. But we've seen him submit Clay Guida, Justin Gonzalez, and Alex Way before that. In the middle of that, he got choked out against Charles Oliveira, which Charles Oliveira will probably be fighting, a top 3 guy coming up here soon, so there's nothing wrong with that. But he did go on a 4-fight skid in 2017, but to be honest, I can attribute that to Jim Miller's Lyme disease that he's been open to. He's been very open about it. But a good thing to hear is he's put it behind him. He's got the right medication for it. He's figured it out and he has managed it, which is always good. So it's basically in the past for him now. He still lives with it, but I think he has managed it correctly. I think basically he's kind of free from it, in comparison to what he used to be. He said the difference is night and day now, which is always good. Jim Miller is the underdog in this one. He's plus 100. He's about even money. You can get him at plus 108 at Betfair Exchange right now. Fence Pachelle, he's actually the older guy in this one. You wouldn't think it, but yeah, Fence Pachelle's 37. Coming off a year-long injury. He was out for hip surgery, which when fighters have to get hip surgery, it's not a good sign, because that sort of shows that there's been a lot of years of wear and tear on their body that's eventually caught up to them. Obviously wear and tear is expected with every fighter, but when it comes to that level, it's a wee bit concerning. And to be honest, in his last victory, he got the win over Roosevelt Roberts, but he didn't actually look that good in my opinion. Roosevelt Roberts is easy to hit takedowns against, which he did. He relied on his wrestling game, but he can't really rely on that against Jim Miller, because Jim Miller will, he could submit Fence Pachelle off his back. I would say he is the better jiu-jitsu artist off his back and on top. So I don't think that path to victory is open for Fence Pachelle. I think he's going to look to work this on the feet, but I think it's even on the feet. I just think Pachelle's more durable, but to be honest, I can see Jim Miller getting this to the ground and eventually submitting Fence Pachelle or decision victory. We've seen his weakness on the ground against Gregor Gillespie. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Jim Miller by sub in that one. So that'll be the prelims wrapped up. Main card coming up soon. Alright, thanks.